What if the person living next door was hiding the darkest secrets imaginable? What if the man you wave to every morning, the one with the quiet family and the ordinary job, was actually a monster? That's not just a nightmare. It's the chilling reality of Rex Heuermann, the man accused of being the Gilgo Beach Killer. My name is Alex Carter, and I've been following this case for years, digging into every shadow, every whisper. You're watching Friday 13, the channel where we don't just tell true horror stories, we drag you into them. If you're here, it's because you're ready to face the darkness head on. So, lock your door, turn off the lights, and let's step into the twisted world of Rex Heuermann. Because once you hear this, you'll never look at your neighbor the same way again. Let's start with the question that's haunted Long Island for over a decade. Who killed the women of Gilgo Beach? In 2010, the remains of 11 people, mostly young women, were found scattered along this lonely highway, hidden in the brush. It was a graveyard in plain sight, and for years, the killer stayed in the shadows. But in 2023, a name finally surfaced. Rex Heuermann, a Manhattan architect, husband, father, and, allegedly, a serial killer. He's now linked to 7 of those murders, and his trial is set for 2025. But here's what keeps me up at night. Is he the only one? Or is there something even darker lurking beneath this case? Stick with me, because this story is just beginning. These women had names, lives, families. Maureen was a mother. Melissa loved photography. Megan dreamed of being a nurse. Amber was trying to start over. Sandra, Jessica, Valerie. They were daughters, sisters, friends. But to the killer, they were prey. And for years, their families begged for answers while the world moved on. Then, in July 2023, the unthinkable happened. Rex Heuermann was arrested. A man who, by all accounts, was ordinary. A quiet architect with a family in Massapequa Park, just 20 minutes from Gilgo Beach. But beneath that facade, a monster, allegedly hiding in plain sight. The evidence was chilling. DNA linked him to 6 of the 7 victims, through hairs found on their bodies. But it wasn't just DNA. Investigators found what they called a blueprint on his computer, a detailed plan for torture, murder, and disposal. It was like a serial killer's playbook, and it matched the crimes perfectly. The prosecution says it's airtight. But here's where it gets messy. Heuermann's defense is fighting back, hard. They're challenging the DNA evidence, calling it unproven, even magic. And they want the 7 murders split into separate trials. Why? Because they know the weight of 7 victims could bury him. But what if they're right? What if the DNA isn't as solid as we think? That's the question that could change everything. And the DNA in question comes from hairs found on the victims, hairs that prosecutors say belong to Heuermann. Hairs that prosecutors say belong to Heuermann or his family. But here's the twist. The method used to extract this DNA is new, cutting edge, and never tested in a New York court. It's called nuclear DNA testing, or SNP, and it's supposed to be state-of-the-art. But Heuermann's lawyers, they're calling it junk science. They want it thrown out, and if they succeed, the prosecution's case could crumble. Imagine that. You're sitting in that courtroom, and the evidence tying the killer to the crime vanishes. What happens then? Does Heuermann walk free? That's the nightmare scenario, and it's not off the table. But it's not just the DNA. There's more, much more. Investigators found over 300 electronic devices in Heuermann's home, packed with violent pornography, torture methods, and searches for the Gilgo Beach case itself. He was watching us, tracking the investigation. And then, there's the blueprint. A document so detailed, it's like a how-to guide for murder. It lists supplies, dump sites, even notes on dismemberment. It's the kind of thing that makes your skin crawl. But here's what's even scarier. What if this document wasn't just for Heuermann? What if it was shared? What if there are others out there following the same twisted playbook? What? That's the question no one wants to ask. Is Heuermann the only monster? Or is there a network, a cult of killers still out there? Think about it. 11 bodies were found near Gilgo Beach, and Heuermann's only charged with 7. What about the others? And what about the tips? Over 7,000 since his arrest, pouring in about other missing women, other crimes. The prosecution says Heuermann's a lone wolf. But I've been digging, and there are whispers. Whispers of accomplices, of copycats, of a darker truth hidden in plain sight. One tip even mentioned a plumbing company Heuermann called around the time of Valerie Mack's murder. Why? Was he covering something up? Or was someone helping him? And then there's the families. They've waited over a decade for justice. And now, they're watching this trial like hawks. I spoke to Melissa Barthelemy's sister, Amy, who said, "We need this to end. We need to know he's the one." But what if he's not? What if the real nightmare is that the killer, or killers, are still out there? That's the fear that keeps me digging, keeps me chasing the truth. Because if Heuermann walks, or if there's more to this, the horror isn't over. It's just beginning. The trial is set for 2025, and the world is watching. Will the DNA hold up? Will the defense tear it apart? And what about the other evidence? The blueprint, the searches, the guns. Heuermann had 92 firearms in his home. 92. That's not normal. That's a man prepared for something. But prepared for what? War? Or covering his tracks? The prosecution says it's proof of his guilt. The defense says it's a red herring. Me? I think it's a glimpse into a mind we can't even begin to understand. Oh. And then there's the question of his family. His wife, Asa Ellerup. His wife, Asa Ellerup, filed for divorce after his arrest. But she's been visiting him in jail. His kids? They're caught in the crossfire. Are they victims too? Or did they know something? The prosecution says they were out of town during the murders. But the defense is pushing back, saying the timeline doesn't add up. It's a mess, and it's only going to get messier. So, here's the question that haunts me. When the trial ends, will we have the truth? Or will we just have more questions? Heuermann's defense is fighting to split the trials, to weaken the case. The prosecution is pushing back, saying the murders are inextricably interwoven. But what if the real story is bigger than one man? What if the Gilgo Beach Killer isn't just Rex Heuermann? What if it's a legacy, a shadow that stretches beyond him? That's the nightmare I can't shake. And it's why I'll be there in that courtroom, watching every second. This is why Friday 13 exists, to chase the truth, no matter how dark it gets. If this story gripped you, if it made you question everything, then subscribe now, hit that bell, join us in the shadows. We've got more horrors to uncover, more nightmares to face. Drop your thoughts below. Do you think Heuermann's guilty? Or is there something we're missing? Your theory could be the key. Like this video. Share it with someone who needs to know the truth. Stay sharp. Stay watching. Because the darkness doesn't rest, and neither do we.